The upcoming Marvel Studios film, The Marvels, is embargoing its reviews until 2 days before release. We have multiple analysts speculating whether or not Disney is abandoning the film and whether or not embargoing these reviews, which is basically preventing them from being released until just 2 days prior to the film being released, is bad news for the movie. Let's get into this here. Eric Davis, the managing director of Fandango, reported on X, looks like the first reactions for The Marvels will drop on November 7 at 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 a.m. Eastern. No one's going to see that late in the night, so maybe they're hoping that it'll trend in the morning on social media and people will be talking about it, or that it will die in the evening. It's just a very weird time to be releasing it. I know that's when they used to be releasing a lot of their Disney Plus shows. They have since changed that because it wasn't actually generating any buzz when people were still awake. When you're just having like a really small minority of people watching something in the middle of the night and hoping that they're gonna just really like glom to it the next day or whatever. Just absolutely awful strategy, and that seems to be the same thing that they're doing here. They moved away from that strategy for a reason, but now they're embargoing reactions until the middle of the night, which is just wild. No one on the East Coast is going to see that because most of us are going to be asleep. Nevertheless, he goes on and says reviews drop the next morning, November 8th. The film arrives in theaters everywhere on November 10. Betting there's lots of surprises in this one. I doubt it. I doubt it. When questioned if the reactions being embargoed until just 3 days before release was a bad sign, Davis responded, Avengers Endgame premiered 4 days before release. So, no, it's hilarious because a lot of people in the responses were like, are you really comparing this to Avengers Endgame? Yeah, it is kind of bizarre that he's comparing to Avengers Endgame. But while Davis claims the review embargo is not a bad sign for the film, other analysts and industry trackers disagree. You have analyst Luis Fernando over here on X. He said currently both social media reactions and critics' full review embargo will be lifted on early morning of Wednesday, November 8th. Same day, The Marvels kicks off its global rollout in several European and Asian markets such as Korea, Hong Kong, France, Italy, Germany, and others. And just one day before the previews happened in the U.S., very unusual for an MCU film. Even Endgame, which had the mission to keep secrets under wraps for as long as possible, allowed social media reactions on Monday. That's Thursday previews. On Monday, 2 days before its rollout kickoff and 3 days prior U.S. previews night. So he's actually directly refuting what Eric Davis is saying about Avengers Endgame, saying that indeed they did allow Avengers Endgame even earlier in the week. And they had lots of secrets to keep there, whereas like they're trying to like make it seem like the Marvels has lots of secrets when in reality it's possibly that it's an absolute terrible film and they just don't want more people to know about it based on the reviews. So he goes on and he says, but it's not only Disney that seems not that enthusiastic about the film. Pre-sales for the Marvels have been the weakest for an MCU film post-COVID. Yeah, even under Eternals. What could denote lack of interest from general audiences in the new, that could denote lack of interest from general audiences in the new entry. And for Disney to be so adamant in preventing people from talking about the film prior to its release, it could mean that the studio might fear that WOM won't do the Marvels any favors either, meaning that the movie sucks. Analyst and YouTuber Valiant Renegade also shared his assessment. He said, in the case of this situation, this is one where they are going to allow any reviews of any kind to come out on this movie until its opening day. That's a bit of a head scratcher. A lot of folks out there would be forgiven for thinking that Disney has no confidence in this film and fear that if reviews come out too soon, it's going to spoil what little hype there is for this film that may still remain by that point. There's not a lot of hype at all. And don't forget, this is even with Disney allegedly paying for positive reviews by actual reviewers on places like Rotten Tomatoes. Yep, we reported on that, as did Valiant Renegade a couple months ago, I want to say, where people were being caught getting paid like $60 to write fake reviews and boosting Rotten Tomatoes scores for various different studios. And it's hard not to imagine that the Walt Disney Company was not doing that either. Valiant Renegade would later note that it appears the Walt Disney Company is shifting its marketing away from the Marvels and putting it toward their upcoming animated film Wish instead. In fact, that's something that Luis Fernando also pointed out when Fanjecture said all marketing is shifted to Wish, and he said, I noticed that as well. That's so weird. Valiant Renegade says, but is it really that weird? I want you to think back a year ago when Disney was anticipating the release of Strange World. That movie was tracking very poorly, and something that WDW Pro and I both noticed is that marketing seemed to be shifting away from that film. The original dollars that Disney would have allocated from distribution to pay for advertising was shifted over to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Matter of fact, we had heard some news from some of our sources that seemed to confirm exactly that. So this would not be the first time that Disney or any studio, for that matter, would make a decision like this. At some point, you have to understand you need to cut your losses, and spending an extra 100 million to market a film above and beyond, maybe 50 to 60 million to maybe 80 million, just enough to get people's attention, might not get you any more ticket sales, and therefore is a waste of money. The Marvels is predicted to have one of, if not the worst, opening weekend box office hauls in Marvel Cinematic Universe history. Box Office Pro predicts the film will only gross between 50 million and 75 million in its opening weekend, and the outlet also predicts the film will only bring in between 121 million and 189 million in its entire domestic run. Given these poor predictions, it's not out of the question that the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios would abandon the film. Disney CEO Bob Iger made it very clear he intended to reduce marketing costs as one solution to the many ails plaguing the company. During the company's Q2 fiscal year 23 earnings results webcast, this is what he said. And one interesting example I should throw marketing into, where when you make a lot of content, everything needs to be marketed. You're spending a lot of money marketing things that are not going to have an impact on the bottom except negatively due to the marketing costs. It's exactly what Valiant Renegade was saying. If you're spending $50 million and not actually getting any return on that marketing cost, why should you be spending the marketing dollars? You're just throwing it down the drain. And Iger is saying that is indeed something that they had been doing. So it would not be out of the question that they have recognized that and have shifted marketing dollars away from the Marvels, seeing it as a lost cause. But I leave it to you. What do you make of the Marvel's reviews being embargoed until just 2 days before the movie releases? Do you think that it is a bad sign, as Luis Fernando and Valiant and Renegade clearly assert, as do I? Or do you think it's not really that big of a deal, as Eric Davis over at Fandango believes? I think Eric Fandango has his priorities a little bit out of whack, given the fact that he works for Fandango and his whole business is trying to drum up movie ticket sales, which is what their primary business is. So that's probably what he's trying to do there. So I would be remiss if I did not point that out. I definitely think this is an absolutely awful sign, and that the movie sucks. It has nothing to do with them trying to create some kind of mystique about the movie, and whether or not they're actually hiding something from people. It's absolute crap. Because if you recall, when they released Spider-Man No Way Home, which had one of the biggest box office, there were plenty of rumors, plenty of leaks hinting at what was in the movie, and that drove a lot of the interest in the film, given the fact that they were going to have all 3 Spider-Man characters in it, and it had one of the biggest box offices of the year when it released. So again, I don't think they're really trying to hide anything. I think it's just them trying to, well, they are trying to hide something. They're trying to hide how awful the movie is. They're not trying to hide like spoilers or anything like that. But let me know what you think in the comments below.
Subscribe for more.